Right then, so Working Wellbeing's podcast live at the water cooler. We are here with David
Joring.
Joring,
Yes. Perfect.
from
HealthKey.
HealthKey. Amazing. I should have just asked you to introduce yourself. Do you want to introduce?
I feel like you're doing very well. Yeah, I'm David Joering. I'm from HealthKey, co-founder and CEO.
Yeah.
I'm Danish, and that's where the accent is.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
That's and the name.
Yeah. That's the only reason I've let you in the pod is because you're from Denmark.
Oh,
So as we just discussed before, I am obsessed with well, more so Copenhagen than Denmark. I've not seen the full delights of Denmark. I've just seen Copenhagen and Legoland in Billund, and that's.
I mean, if you could brought the kids, I'm assuming with kids.
Yes.
For Legoland.
Yeah.
Yes.
You said just on my own.
It's a magical place. It's very proud of it. Yeah. I should probably give a sort of a plug for the rest of the country, but I'm from Copenhagen, so you're not offending me by having a preference.
Yeah.
For that.
Well, I'll tell you what. I will genuinely ask you about it because I've got some things that I want to pick your brains about the difference between Denmark and England. But before we do, tell me about HealthKey. What do you do?
Yeah, so in simplicity, HealthKey is a health and wellbeing platform. We don't provide benefits ourselves, but we aggregate an ecosystem of providers, all built around the thesis that the best health and wellbeing services are done by experts. And health and wellbeing is very wide. So mental health, to women's health, MSK, GP access, cancer support, all of these things are best done by experts. But from both an employee and an HR perspective, it's very hard to procure from or access 50, 75 different providers and different platforms. So you need an ecosystem and a platform to access all of these different experts so it feels like they're not a fragmented landscape. It feels like one, but also where it can be really personalized and bespoke. So out of all these things, not everyone needs the same. Your 25-year-old grad needs something else than the 40-year-old in the sandwich generation or the 55-year-old who's coming back from a cancer scare. And again, comes back to we talk about health and well-being often as if it's one thing and we all know what it is. But as we're seeing, it's a lot of different things. And so what we do, and this came from my experience working on a health provider side, is try to make that fragmentation easy for employers and employees who both HR perspective rarely have too much time or too large budgets, but also everyone's got platform fatigue. Can't just have, here's a lot of different things. It needs to be really easy. Because at the end, the value only is as good as the engagement. If people don't know it's there, if they forget, or they don't know how to access it, it doesn't do anything.
Absolutely, because so there's been a bit of a backlash, hasn't there, recently, mainly based on the Fleming paper. You heard of the Fleming paper? Yeah, where individual wellbeing interventions don't work, basically. Now they had some data that showed that. I'm not sure I fully agree with that necessarily, perhaps across whole populations, but I would put it more down to the lack of personalisation, the lack of access. It's not that they don't work, it's just that people aren't accessing it at the time that they need to, right?
Yeah, and I think it's personalisation gets sort of bandied around a lot. We think it's relevance and accessibility. So you got to have access to things that you've got to have access to it. It's got to be easy to do. It's got to be relevant to you. And I think one of the things that comes out when you're looking at papers like that is one of the challenges is if you give people one problem is for sort of one size fits all, it's not really relevant to a lot. And those that it is relevant to are the ones that are probably already doing something in that. And you get this sometimes, like the simple example is people think that we're going to get our workforce moving a lot more with a discount for gyms. What you often get is all the ones that are already going to the gym really like it, because you've given me a discount and I'm paying less, but I was paying already, and you're not necessarily getting people who were not going to go to the gym to go to the gym. And that goes for a lot. I'm not saying gym discounts are fantastic, but you've got to do more around it. And how do you engage people to use what they're given, and whether that's on the more reactive side, sort of physiotherapy, and get them to engage earlier. And I think that's one of the big problems. And you see this with, it used to be that sort of good engagement and benefit is sort of under 10%. If you get to 10%, everyone's really happy. And it probably, And those are probably the 10 most engaged percent. It's not the ones that you need to hit, and then the ones that need the help. And if you've got multiple products, sometimes it's the same people are really good at getting in and using all of them. And so we try to work with companies looking at not just what's engagement, who's engaging with different products, how are they engaging with them, what are the gaps, and being able to plug and say, okay, so it looks like your workforce, it's very much this group that is getting something, who's not engaged, and then basically be able to build hypotheses around why do we think they're not engaged, what we think they're missing. And I think what a lot of benefit delivery is missing is the ability to be flexible and iterate on it. And because you get a provider and you're locked in for a year, and then you measure it in 6 months and you go, it's not really working, we'll measure it again in 12 months. But to really change something and do that, you've got to be quite nimble on your feet. And that sounds expensive. It's one of those things where we try to say, well, we can automate all the tracking, do real-time insights, but also have a contracting that is flexible and it allows for that over time, so that HR, even at a lower budget, can get that flexibility. Because what we hear a lot is the budget's a problem, and budget and senior stakeholder buy-in is high.
Always.
Right, and it makes sense. It's very hard to prove the ROI. But if you can show that you're not locked into something that doesn't work, and you can flex it, and you can actually target things, makes that senior stakeholder buy-in just it's a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great. So it's the thing that always blows my mind is, and I experienced this as an individual, how the smallest things can make you disengage from a process, right? Literally, even if it's something that I really want, so maybe I really want the gym membership, but I have to log in twice to get there, I'll give up. I'll give up.
No, it's
we're so we're so simple as human beings, aren't we? Or not simple, but we just give up. But it's like, if it's not really easy and if it's not on right in front of me, I'm just
it's maddening. I think it's one of those things where you got to draw on a lot from what you see as sort of consumer technology and see, okay, we can see that instantly. If you put in an extra click, the bounce rate goes up.
Really?
And people are looking at something, they're searching for something, and services that have just a few steps where it's there's an extra step here, and drops off.
That's it.
And so we do with employers, we actually work with the partners that we have in terms of the benefit and say, we can see that this works for someone else. If you cut out this step, even if it's a learning that we got from a GP provider over to a mental health or a gym provider, and say, listen, this is best in class, even things like onboarding and communication, because to say, people are simple, but it is, it doesn't take a lot of friction.
No.
And I think it's just hard to keep people engaged, where most employees are busy, and it's got to be really easy to do it. It's got to be embedded in how we think about what we have and what we can do.
So does your platform give you any insight? Are you able to collect data? What are people searching for?
Yeah, so it's quite, so we've got a platform where we integrate all different services, and so we can see obviously what people are clicking and what they're using and how they're using it. But because if you've got multiple benefits, there's a search bar, and so rather than browse, a lot of people we're very used to, all of us, a search bar. And so looking at the keywords that people use are great, because it shows not just that they're accessing, say, physio. Oh, that means is it back pain? Is it shoulder pain? Is it knees? Are there any trends? But particularly also, are there certain products that people are searching for and they might not be finding them? So we can see what are those trends in terms of where do people go and what are the dead ends? But also, interesting, one of the I don't know if it's a favorite, but a great learning we had was saw people search for things related to financial well-being before clicking a mental health product. Because that benefit package they had didn't include financial well-being. But if you see people search for debt or mortgage and then click the product for anxiety, it's not a great leap to say, maybe we should add in some financial well-being and target that specifically. And that's some of the learning that's hard to do if you just look at engagement and say, okay, people are using the mental health solution.
Yes.
It must be fit for purpose because it gets usage.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're one step removed and go, actually, yes, it's great to have it, but what we should be layering in is specifically around financial health.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
So is that a theme that you've seen on a track?
we've seen that. So financial, I think cost of living.
Really? Yeah.
So financial well-being definitely is up there. There's some classic trends. Everyone's got back pain. You get over 30, and this, but what's interesting is looking at different companies and how they vary compared to others. So looking at like size and industry,
That's interesting.
then you can start to see actually this organization is slightly higher on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then have that conversation with HR to say, we don't know why,
Yes.
but we know that your employees are slightly out of average
Yes.
on these parameters, and they're searching a little bit more for this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's simple enough to say, people have a lot more back pain in your company than others. Maybe your chairs are bad.
Sure.
Sometimes it's not that clear cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at least you get that sense of what it is. And I think it's all, there's not one data point that's does all of it for you, but it's triaging multiple things. And what are they using? Who's using what? What are people searching for? What's the feedback from the services?
Yeah.
And getting all of that together, we then try to do our own analysis, bring the insights, but also giving all of that data back to HR and say, this is what we can see. Let's work with you to find out.
Yeah. And this is what we keep talking about. We need it to be evidence-based. We need it to be data-led. And then people just go, but what data? Sickness absence, retention figures, and that's it. And they stop there. But what you're talking here is a much more nuanced way of collecting data in terms of how people are actually behaving.
Exactly. And I think the challenge, absence data is hard. Particularly organizations where more and more people work from home or have sort of flexible working environments. And unless it's very sort of in-person construction or hospitality, absence data is so at best. But it's also quite reactive. Okay. And you rarely have a good sense of why people are off, particularly in the short-term absences. Yeah. So is that because people need support for they caring for elderly parents? Yeah. Is it something with their kids? Is it home life? Is it mental health? Do they need to go see a specialist every other Friday? That data is hard to collect. And it's not that we can see that, but if you tie that together with what services are they using, what words are they using, you can start to have those conversations. Yes. Yeah. And again, coming back to that helps the level of personalization. Yeah. Because people, like, the more specific it is, the more it helps someone. And we often see and recommend that people don't limit the benefit to the employee. Yeah. Think of it as their whole family. Yeah. And include their life holistically. Because the return and the impacts, usually a lot of the things that worry us, that provide us stress, that might take us out of the workforce, it is related to our family. Yeah. And so in the end, why are we providing these benefits, and how do you get that senior stakeholder buy-in? Try to work out what they are, but also something that other industries do, and I think benefits can learn a lot from, and there's a lot of room for improvement, is the ability to test and learn and iterate. And that's where sort of, and this is the plug from our side, but it requires specialists and the flexibility to switch between them. Got you. Right, I've got two more quick questions. One is, you might not be able to answer this, but I'm going to see if you can try. You mentioned there are differences by organization. So organizations, what factor predicts most variance from the norm? Is it organization type? Is it industry? Is it generations? Is it gender? Is it? I think there's a lot of factors. Do you see women are just completely different from men in terms of what they're accessing? Do you see people in finance are completely different from, or? only to the extent that they are gender-specific health areas.
Yes, sure.
Right, so
You're not getting men
menopause.
searching for menopause. Yeah.
But I think other than that, you do see certain trends, and there are certain areas that are more stigmatized in different industries. And we do a lot at the moment working in the construction industry, and mental health is a big challenge, stigmatized, and bringing that to the front. And there are certain things.
So that's been searched for.
So it's both being searched for, but we can also, it's one where, so one thing is what are people doing, and the other is if you put certain measures into place, if you do more, what's the output?
Yes. Yeah.
So in certain industries, if it's younger and it's in a city technology company, there's not a lot of stigma around mental health. And so you could probably have a pretty good idea of by search and behavior, who needs help and how is it.
Yeah.
Whereas in certain industries, it might be that you're not seeing it, but if you then try and say, okay, we've got a hypothesis that there is a need here because we can see that as an industry thing. So we got to push and create more awareness and try to break those stigmas, and then you see them go up. And I think that's another where we shouldn't be fooled by data, as in if usage of mental health solutions goes up, it's not necessarily that more people have gotten mental health problems. It could be that there was more stigma and people weren't comfortable doing it, or they weren't aware that it was there. So there's always that challenge of being misled by, oh no, more people now have anxiety or stress. No, more people seeking help.
The stigma's gone down. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I guess only time will tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And again, we sort of see it as the more people looking for help, the better.
Yeah.
Because it also gets them to do it earlier.
Yeah.
And don't make looking for help something that is after the fact, and so you could have a problem.
Yes. Exactly. And then my final question, which has got nothing to do with anything we've been talking about, but I mentioned Denmark right at the start, so I felt I needed to come back to it.
Yeah.
In 30 seconds, why is everyone so happy in Denmark and miserable in the UK? You've experienced both.
I'm not sure that everyone's miserable here. I really like moving. I think the happiness thing, and it's sort of a bit of a cliche. I think it's almost more of a measure of safety. So I think when we think about sort of measuring population happiness, it's not necessarily everyone's elated all the time. It's the absence of worry.
Yeah. Right.
And so you don't have student debt. The healthcare is free, education's free, and you've got good pensions. And I think it's more of a carefree than necessarily a happy.
Okay.
Now, carefree does translate into more happiness, and particularly in the way you measure it. But I think that's what you'll find, like shorter work weeks, less stress.
Yeah. I got you.
I think that's
interesting.
in one of lots of factors.
No, absolutely. Do you know,
if you got to boil it down.
Yeah, it's a really good take. I spoke to a Dane previously on the podcast, and I asked them the same question. And do you know what they put it down to? And I don't know, this seemed a bit tongue in cheek, but he did kind of see it through in terms of what he was telling me. He said that in Denmark, their expectations are lower. He said, look, we're happy if I've got a house and if I've got, my kids are happy and all the rest of it, and that's enough. Nope. Whereas in the UK, it's, I need a Ferrari and I need this and I need what the next door neighbour's got and all the rest of it. Yeah.
And I think that's actually like definitely part of the answer. Yeah. And funnily enough, there's a sort of cultural difference in that the striving for material goods is culturally looked down on. So it's not, and the challenge is that the sort of the flip side of your problem is ambition not being celebrated.
Yes.
But the benefit is you have less of that push and the pressure. It's, you've got a good family, you've got a good life, the roof over your head, job's pretty all right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Don't need a bigger car.
Yeah.
And so then it's very sort of part of the culture not to strive for the fancy car.
But as you say, there's maybe a downside.
And so there's always
a downside to everything, isn't there?
Yeah.
Although I do feel like I want to live a little bit more Danishly. That's my plan.
I mean, I think if you can get the pressure off and allow the ambition, that'd be the dream.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely. Great place to end. So I do need to ask you, where can people find you? So how do they find out more about your company? You
So obviously, we're at the stand here for
Away
once,
from the
or
event as well.
away from the event. Our website is very simple. It's HealthKey, as in health and a key, .health.
.health. Oh, I like
Yeah.
that. I like that. And yourself, are you on LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn, David Joring, can found there. And yeah, very happy to also just, we're very consultative approach. So also just questions around data and how to think about benefits. Very happy to talk.
Love it. Right. Thanks so much for coming. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
It's very
nice.